What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy Nichols here with Miss Yvonne Harper. She is the founder of the Shelbys Walk Foundation, and she's going to tell us a little bit about it today and also how you can get involved and help out as well. How you doing today, Miss Yvonne?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Hey,
I appreciate it.
Now, we've had a long talk before we got recording. we talked about a little bit of everything, and so I'm really looking forward to this one. We got 9 questions here, and then of course at the end of it, we're going to let her hit on whatever that I missed out on or she needs to hit on, and we're going to get you some information on if you want to help out, how you can, and how to get a hold of her so you can help out. So, you ready to get into it?
I am.
All righty, let's roll. Number 1, of course, is who are you?
Well, I think you already covered that. My name is Yvonne Harper, and I am the founder of Shelbys Walk Foundation. So that is who I am. Do you want a little bit more?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your background.
Born and raised in Florida, born in Fort Myers, raised in Duet, Florida, which is this little, well, it was a country in Manatee County. Joined the Navy at 18, served 7.5 years. My daughter was born in Guam at the Naval Hospital when I was active duty. I got out of the Navy to support my husband because we were the same job. So in the Navy at the seashore rotation, in order for us to be geographically together, he'd have been sea, I'd have been shore, and then the reverse. So I figured it was more important to be a parent than to be a mom. So I got out in 95 and then supported my husband in his service, and he retired in, oh gosh, when did he retire? I'm asking you. Right. 2014?
Oh, wow. So you stayed with it a while.
I think 30 years, yes.
Wow.
So we were here. This was our final landing spot, if you will. And what else? Oh, see, I taught English as a second language for many, many years. I taught at PSC. I was an adjunct professor. I was a writer.
Wow.
Do a lot of different
bit of
things.
Everything, huh?
You know, in every position, I think God has just really prepared me for Shelbys Walk Foundation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Which is not exactly it's not where I saw myself being.
Right.
Obviously.
Of course.
But it's definitely needed.
Well, you're absolutely correct about that. Okay, now can you tell us a little bit about the Shelbys Walk Foundation and how it came to be?
Well, it came to be after the death of my daughter. She killed herself on Christmas Eve Day, 2019. And that was the result of unhealed trauma from being raped at age 11. Right. Now, at the time, I did not know that this is where I would be, right? But the Lord really just started putting it on my heart probably about a year after she died, that we just needed to do better as a society in the way that we treat trauma. And initially it was about suicide. People really don't think about what they say when they find out that my daughter killed herself, and they ask questions that they don't ask other people, you know, and the way they say things. And what I realized is that we really need to do better. Number one is addressing suicide. It is not a permanent solution to a temporary problem, because healthy people don't kill themselves over temporary issues.
Right.
And it's not a silent killer. I've heard that, you know, suicide is the silent killer. It's not. It's a bomb that goes off within the family. There's nothing silent about suicide.
Right.
Well, didn't you know? Which the wit in me, the dryness, wants to come out and say, yeah, of course I knew. I hugged my daughter that day and then to run to the store to get a few items for Christmas dinner, knowing I was going to find her dead when I came home. Yes, I knew that. You know, so often there's just a lot of misconceptions about suicide.
Right.
You know, most individuals who kill themselves, they don't leave notes. Some do, most don't. They don't tell you. They don't give their stuff away. I mean, and again, I mean, that's not in every situation.
Right.
But the more I learned about it, the more I learned that what I learned was really not very accurate. And for most people, it is a journey. You know, and that is the final act in that journey. And for her, I understood the reasons why. I did not see it coming. Obviously, if I had, I would not have left her.
Right.
I love my daughter immensely, and I miss her every day, and so that was very difficult. But and then also my faith. I just thought, okay, Lord, what do I do with this now? What does my life look like? What do I do now? And God has a way of getting a hold of me, and he doesn't let me go, which is a little frustrating. Right. And then I like to argue with God. If that ever works in my favor, it never does. Don't ever argue with God. No. You're not going to win that one. So finally, this past summer, I was out in California, and I was, walking her dog, Natsu, every day. She was out in San Diego with her husband, who was in the Navy, and so he had asked us to take her dog.
So I'll mean to interrupt you. Now you saying your daughter was married and somebody?
She was
else?
married,
okay.
Yes, and he had joined the Navy and had been in the Navy a couple of years. They had been not married quite 2 years when she died, and so he was stationed in San Diego.
Okay, gotcha.
So and my husband was out there for work. No, that's fine. And so, anyways, we ended up getting Natsu, this beautiful Doberman. And of course, I had to walk him. So I'm arguing with the Lord, right? I'm like, okay, I don't know where this is going. I don't know really what you want me to do. I don't want to just talk about suicide. I don't want to just talk about rape. I don't want to just talk about, mental trauma that can lead to mental illness without hope. There has to be hope.
Absolutely.
And so really it was about changing the endings by creating opportunities for new beginnings. And I still don't know really where we're going. And right. God has said, you just have to trust me. Just take a step. Okay, Lord, I'll take a step. So I really began in earnest with the foundation at the end of September. And we received our 501c3 status at the end of November. The letter is dated November 28th. And I had received an email from the attorney that I had hired to make sure all the paperwork was done correctly with the state and the IRS. And he sent an email on the 17th of November that they had submitted the paperwork to the IRS, and I get the letter on December 3rd, and it was dated November 28th. So I knew that the Lord is definitely in this, because November 28th is my birthday, and that's not the relevant part. The relevant part is it falls on Thanksgiving every few years. In 2019 was that year, and it was the last day that my family was all together for Thanksgiving. And then my son went back to school the next day, and the individual writing the letter from the IRS would not know that.
Right.
I would know that.
Right.
And so the goal or the mission is to change the ending by providing opportunities for a new beginning, or by creating opportunities for a new beginning.
Awesome.
And the goal to reach that mission is to fund holistic trauma healing. And the purpose is to engage communities, engage the churches, engage business leaders, engage the clinical profession, if you will, right. About really viewing trauma differently. Because what I learned with Shelby and her journey is the two most prevalent ways of dealing with trauma was cognitive behavior therapy and drugs. And there is nothing wrong with cognitive behavior therapy. It's talking things out. It's talk therapy as it's known.
Right.
But with trauma survivors, talking about the trauma with the goal of changing the way the person feels about the trauma or the perception of the trauma just keeps them stuck in that trauma, because they have to keep talking about it. And Shelby, I lost count after 10 counselors.
Constantly have to repeat that.
You're trying to find somebody. Man. Right. So she would say, they don't get it. They don't see me. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And these counselors, probably with the exception of the first couple that we dealt with in Japan, but the vast majority of them, they really do mean well.
Right.
And they're not bad people. They're not bad counselors, right? But that's what the insurance covers, is the type of treatment that is considered mainstream. And then, of course, what I like to call the label and prescribe just treats the symptoms. You're not sleeping? Give her a drug. When she was 14, we go to the Navy captain psychiatrist in Yokosuka, Japan, and he gives her trazodone. which I didn't know what trazodone was at the time, right? He just explained it will help her sleep. And she had been having nightmares. And at that point, you want to do as much as you can, right, to help your child.
Right.
And so you're trusting this person. And then, of course, he gives her Risperdal. He said, well, this will make her tired, so Risperdal during the day. So later I find out that trazodone is never to be prescribed to individuals under the age of 18. It is a serious antipsychotic drug, and it's used off-label for sleep in adults. And that Risperdal is an upper. So instead of saying, okay, well, I've heard you, you were raped, let's try to heal this trauma, like actually heal this so that you will sleep. His first response was, well, let me give you a drug to help you
take
sleep.
A pill.
So, and that was pretty much the treatment.
And sadly, it seems
years.
like it is. That's how it is for so many. And that's. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Please do.
That's how it is for so many. Not just in the traumatic situations, but anything else. Their first answer is, "Here, I'm going to write you a prescription. I'm going to write you a prescription." That's why we have so many of the problems that we do with addiction and everything else. Oh, your arm's hurting. Here's an opiate. Take this. And they don't think about years down the road, just because you had a sprained arm or whatever, now you're addicted to an opiate. They don't think about the side effects that come along with these pills. When you said trazodone, you probably noticed my eyes went up.
I figured you knew what it was.
Yeah, everybody, I'm sure everybody knows by now what trazodone is, and it just blows my mind. And it's sad, like you said. I'm sure they mean well. They're trying to do what they mean best, but that goes back to their training right there. They're trained to, okay, here this. Okay, here's the pill that answers all your problems. We need to do better. We need to do more than just write a little prescription for a pill to answer your problem, because that is not the answer.
No, it's not. And when we returned to the United States, we ended up doing an early return of dependence. The psychiatrist that she saw here, who was very good, he was shocked. And he said she never should have been prescribed that. And he immediately began to take her off of that. But of course, it was replaced with, other anti-anxiety, things like that. And I want to stress, it's not that those things are bad, because I will be open and honest. After Shelby died, about a month after she died, I was sitting at home. My husband's at work, my son's back at school, and nobody's there. And I started shaking. I was breaking down on every level. I had never envisioned a world that did not have my daughter.
Right.
And I just thoroughly enjoyed my daughter, even during the difficult times. I just really, and my son,
your baby girl
as well. I love my children. I enjoyed their presence. I love being a mom, and I just didn't know how to process any of that. And I was literally shaking. I couldn't stop shaking. And my husband gets home. He's quite worried, scoops me up, put me in the truck, and we go to the doctor. And I was given anti-anxiety medication. Right. And I did take it. But I do remember calling a friend of mine who has the organization. He founded the organization Soft Missions, which is very similar in structure to Shelbys Walk, but he works with veterans. Okay. And I called him and I said, I don't know what to do. And all I know is I don't want to be here in a year, right? I don't know what I need. And at that point, a few months into it, people were telling me what I need. Well, this is what you need to do. You need to do this. You need to do that. I didn't know what I needed, right? And I was really tired of people telling me what I needed.
Exactly.
And then I met, so through him, I went to a trauma certified counselor. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, there's a difference.
Yeah.
And the first thing that struck me is the form that you fill out is completely different. And I had filled out many of these forms with Shelby, which were, obviously your age, your name, or that. But the forms that she filled out were mostly checking a box. And I don't think I ever saw any form that asked her, what are your goals? What do you want? Where his form, Dr. Copeland, was very narrative driven. And then when I met him, He didn't have a clipboard. He didn't take any notes. He just sat there and he listened. And about 15 minutes into it, I realized that he was just listening.
Yeah.
And I was stunned. Because I had not ever experienced that with Shelby. And again, we went through many counselors. And I said to him, I remember saying to him, I wish I had known about you 4 months ago. I think my daughter would still be alive, right?
Right.
And so there was that as well. And, just understanding that it could be done differently.
Yeah.
And really learning. So after her death, it was really just a matter of learning. And then I had a life coach, Ani, who came along beside me and would check up on me and what are your goals and, hold me accountable. It's like, and okay, Yvonne, you're having a bad day. Or she would listen, right? And really just helped, so I began to understand that, yes, people who experience trauma, they need a team. And that's what holistic means. A lot of people think it means like mysticism or yes, right?
Yeah.
But holistic really is the whole person, because trauma affects the whole person. It affects the mind, the body, the spirit, the social, the emotional. And so it takes a team to come along beside this person and say, we can't walk the journey for you, but we can walk it with you. And so the goal of funding the holistic healing looks just like that. So an individual would contact the foundation. I would meet with them. I would talk to them on the phone and really ask them, what are their goals? What is it that you need? How can we help you? And depending on where they're at, and this is, you start local, you go state. This is going to be nationwide, right? And then not hopefully, it will go international.
Absolutely.
But, providing the person a trauma therapist, having the person have a life coach that they can connect with.
Yeah.
Do they have a personal fitness program? Do you want one, right?
I love that.
So do you want a gym membership, or do you like biking? Okay, we can find a personal trainer to help you bike or swim or yoga, whatever that looks like for them, because the physical aspect is important as well. And then for me, to offer the Christ-centered Bible studies, support groups, churches. Now, the person, if they say no, that's fine. I am not going to force somebody to go to a Bible study, right?
Right.
Because I understand that, yes, in Christ there is salvation and healing and freedom. But I also understand that when people are broken, it's like saying to a hungry person, do you know the Lord? Well, they're really just concerned about, they're just hungry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But, not forcing Christ on anyone. Christ didn't do that either. But it's coming along beside the person in those ways. And so I was looking at numbers, because our goal this year is to raise $500,000, which is a lot of money, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, let's break it down by return on investment. I'm going to have to get my paper here because there's some numbers. And I just looked at Santa Rosa County, for example. So if we were to, for a person without insurance, if we were to pay, when we pay a weekly trauma therapist, the average going rate once a week, that would be $5,760 a year. Okay. For a fitness instructor or a fitness program, that would be $2,400 a year. For a life coach, it's about $1,200 a year. If someone needs a 30-day rehab, because there is that substance abuse, then, or, addiction, that's $24,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay. So the annual cost for holistic trauma healing without the rehab is $9,360. For the rehab, or with the rehab, is $33,360.
Wow.
Now, that's a lot of money, right?
Absolutely.
However, consider what it costs to house one person in the San Rosa County Jail. So the way I did this was
see where you're going.
I looked at just San Rosa County with a population of about 195,000, because in 2021 it was 193,988,000.
Right.
So just bumped it up a little bit. The sheriff's budget for the corrections, just the corrections, which is to house people who are in jail, the whole corrections facility, is $7,299,630. They have a max capacity of 698. So I divided the 698 into the almost $3 million.
Right.
So per inmate, if at capacity, is $10,458. Now, the symptoms or the manifestation of unhealed trauma is self-harming, risky behavior, and this is not inclusive of everything, and substance abuse, drug use, which can lead to crime to support the drug, habit, which can lead to jail. As we were talking about earlier, a perpetuating of the violence. So if a person's grown up in a violent home, and then they in turn treat their children violently or domestic violence, right?
Yep.
Because that's all they knew. It doesn't make it right, and people do need to be held accountable.
Right.
But they're now in the prison system, and this is just the corrections center. This isn't including the
prison.
This isn't the judicial system and the prosecutors and the effect that it has on the community and the family. So trauma splatters. So that's just one. So it's an investment of, okay, we can spend this much money for one inmate, or we can sponsor someone's healing, right? Because it would be for a year. So then I looked at your Baker Act, which is when someone is involuntarily committed, generally because they're at risk, they've expressed suicidal tendencies, there's a mental illness there, and often unhealed mental trauma can lead to mental illness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the Baker Act is for anyone under the age of 18 and younger. It's $300 according to the state of Florida, $300 a night.
You said under 18 or
18
younger?
18 and younger, or they would have to be under the age of 18 because it's for minors.
See, I didn't know that. I thought it was for everybody right there.
Well, you can have I
don't mean to get you off topic.
No, you're right. In the sense that it would be involuntary, right? So there is a Baker Act for adults as well.
Okay.
So, but and I was thinking of my daughter, but there's also, I think it's called the Marchman Act.
Yep.
Or the
Marchman Act for drug abuse or substance abuse.
Yes, and adults where someone else files that request to be.
Usually like a family member or something like that.
Yes.
I think it's 2 family members have to do it. I'm not sure. It's been so long since I was in the police and corrections academy where we talked about all that, but I believe it's 2 family members have to go before a judge and say, this is what's going on, can you do it, yada, yada, yada. But
you are right. The Baker Act is for adults as well.
Okay.
Because it is long, so thank you for providing that correction for me.
Well,
but that's $300 a night. So if the person does the minimum stay or a 72-hour stay, that's $900. If they have to do a five day, that's $1,500. So again, we can fund a life coach at $1,200, or the state can pay
$300 a night.
$300 a night. And then I looked at alcohol, right? Because again, one of a common means of dealing with trauma, especially in adults, is alcohol, right? It doesn't. People who rely on alcohol think that it takes the pain away. It doesn't. It just takes it away for that moment. Of course, the trauma is still there when they're sober. But there is this thing called drinking and driving, right? So again, trauma splatters. It doesn't just affect the person.
Trauma splatters. I don't mean to interrupt you. That right, trauma splatters. There's a great saying right there. Trauma splatters.
It does.
Yeah.
It definitely splatters. So what does a DUI cost? Again, I went to the state of Florida. This is a first-time offense, right?
Okay.
It can cost, depending on the severity, the fine can be as high as $4,000, 50 hours of community service, or a fine for each of those hours totaling $500. It can be up to 6 to 9 months in jail or residential treatment. And that's just if no one's been hurt, right? That's just being pulled over.
One individual.
So again, $4,000 or
$3.
right. So
Starting to paint a picture here.
Yeah. So while $500,000 is a lot, we don't have to meet that benchmark before we can start helping people.
Right.
Right. You could have someone say, okay, I'll sponsor a life coach at $1,200, or I'll sponsor, someone's trauma therapist for $5,000. Now, here's the condition, in the sense that if someone has insurance that would cover the trauma therapist, then the insurance would pick up that, and we would pick up any copays or any deductibles, right?
Gotcha.
And again, it's for a year. And trauma does splatter. We look at the prison system. We look at our children. It splatters. And I liken it to if you're waiting for a bus and you're standing 5 feet back from the edge of the bus stop, and there's a person standing right at the bus stop, and somebody they know drives by and thinks it would be fun to go through the puddle, the mud puddle, because it just rained, to splash the person at the bus stop. Well, you standing 5 feet back, you're going to get splashed as well.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things where, and collectively, it's like $458 billion that it costs our society. And you look at the numbers, between 2000 and 2020, more than 800,000 Americans killed themselves.
Wow.
That's more than 60 out of the 67 counties in the state of Florida. So just imagine 60 out of the 67 counties in the state of Florida ceasing to exist. Just the average, which is a little more than 40,000 Americans a year.
Every year.
Good I mean, that's almost the population of one of our districts in Santa Rosa County. So it's one of those where you change the ending by providing opportunities for a new beginning. We can't change what happened. You can't change the fact that my daughter was raped. Right. Can't change the fact that she is dead. But I can change the ending with a new beginning. So when a person is healed from trauma, it doesn't change whatever traumatic event or events happened.
Right.
But what it does is the trauma stops being the needle and thread weaving the story of the person's life, and they're free from that, in the sense that they no longer have maybe the triggers or the nightmares, and they're able to move forward in freedom from the past.
Right.
The past isn't dictating the terms of the present. And what a lot of people who don't understand, who have not experienced trauma, is they say things, and they said it to Shelby and they said it to me, well, she just needs to get over it. You just need to move on.
Oh, wow.
If you've ever said that, please stop saying it, because it doesn't help, right?
Oh my goodness.
You just need to just think differently about, well, how do you think differently about the fact that you were raped when you're 11, right? Or any other. I mean, it takes the form of trauma. It happens in different ways. And we need to start seeing people as the whole person, and understanding that people process trauma differently as well. Yes, you could have someone who's raped and they're able to move forward. It doesn't seem to be a big
deal to them.
Overriding factor in their life.
Right.
But for someone else, it can be debilitating, right? It would be like you and me being in a car accident. How I process that car accident, how you process that car accident will be very different. You might be able to walk away from it and be fine. I might not be able to get inside a car for 6 months.
Yeah.
Because we're all different, and we really need to start, you're talking about like the prison system, right?
Right.
We really need to start viewing trauma survivors as individuals and not a check
Just
mark.
throw them in right. Mm-hmm. I can't. That's one thing that I'm not going to lie. I'm sure I've been guilty of it before in the past. Immature, younger person. Something happened. Oh, get over it. Mm-hmm. We've all heard it. We've all seen it. But thankfully, the more I'm exposed to things like this and hear the stories, I've got buddies that have been to war, and have PTSD. And you hear it and you think, oh, come on, that's not real. That can't be really bothering you, really. And then you see some of the actions that they have. And you're like, wait a minute, there's something really going on here. At the end of the day, we don't know what is going on in each other's heads. Okay, we really don't. We can sit there and think, we do know, but in reality, you have no clue what I'm thinking, what you're thinking. at the end of the day, just try to be nicer. Good grief, be more, caring. It's not going to hurt you. How's it going to hurt you in any way, shape, form, or fashion for you just to be more considerate? It's really not, And at the end, you're helping a fellow human being. I just don't get it, but I guess it's our machismo, mentality that we have as males, as Americans, whatever you want to call it. But,
I mean, I don't know. I was raised, like I said, I grew up in the country, and I was very much raised that way too. Something happens, you just suck it up and you move on.
Right, absolutely.
And there are some
there's
things,
levels.
Yes, there's levels, right?
Yes.
Like if you spill coffee on your pants in the morning,
big deal.
yes, you
life
have
goes on.
a choice, right?
Right.
I can ruin the rest of my day, or I can just change my pants, throw them in the wash, and move forward, move on, right? But one of the things that I found interesting, and he was a counselor, Navy hired him in Japan, is he had my daughter watch The Secret, which I didn't know what that was at the time, right? And so
it's a good book too.
Well, it was a worldview, in my opinion, not so good for trauma survivors, because it was created by a former Australian TV producer, and it was basically this approach that if you put good thoughts into the universe, good things will happen.
Right.
And if you put enough good thoughts in the universe, you can, and I remember this vividly because I was watching the video, you can flip through the catalog of the universe and good things will happen.
Right.
And of course, this was in 2008, so maybe the video's changed since then. And if bad things happen, it's because you've not put enough good thoughts in the universe. Okay. Now, my daughter was 14. Now, that type of approach doesn't work. And so at that point, I stopped the video, asked my daughter to step out, and was quite vocal with the counselor.
Right.
Because most, especially with rape victims, they don't, it's not uncommon to not report it because they feel like they won't be believed. And then they feel that somehow they're at fault.
Yep.
Or they will be blamed, right? So I understood his approach, like, well, it's just perception.
Right.
But everything that he had just had my daughter watch reinforced all the reasons why most rape victims don't say anything.
Gotcha.
Right? It's like, well, it's your fault because you didn't put enough good thoughts in the universe. Type of thing. So
I don't want you to think I was saying, it's a good book. For what it is, I've read The Secret, the book. I haven't seen the movie, but the see it, believe it type deal, that's what I'll speak on.
And that's my point, right? Is that is not a bad approach to certain things.
Gotcha.
But it is not a good approach for someone who's experienced trauma.
Right.
It's not a good approach for someone who's been on the battlefield and has watched their friend just get blown up in front of them. Yeah. So it's not a good approach for someone who's been in a car accident.
Time and place type deal.
They're stuck and they cannot physically get out of the car, and they have to be removed. Your jaws of life coming in.
I just didn't want you to think I was insincere.
No, I didn't think that.
I was just looking at it when I read it, and putting the positive thoughts out there, seeing something, visualizing it and going after it type of deal. But you're absolutely correct. For somebody that's been in a traumatic situation, how can you, just push? You can't just push something that big aside and look for a brighter future when you have to deal with it. You have to, some way, somehow, you're going to have to deal with it.
Well, it's understanding, and if anyone's out there that wants to read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it is phenomenal because
I'll put that up there. The Body Keeps the Score.
The Body Keeps the Score. He does such a great job of going into the part of the brain that when trauma happens, the part of the brain that it is processed in, which is, and I'm going to put this in layman's term, is more the emotional part.
Okay.
And that emotional part, because it can affect the nervous system. It affects the entire person, right? And so when something happens, traffic, right? You just take traffic for instance. You get stuck in traffic. So when a person's gone through a traumatic event and that they've not been healed, that emotional part of the brain can kick in and override the logical part of the brain that tells you, okay, you're kind of overreacting here. You kind of need to throttle it back, right? Because that trauma is still there. And so that's what a lot of people don't understand. And then the flashbacks, the triggers, like a person, like with my daughter, there were many times when we would be out, in public or in the store or whatever, and someone would come along beside her and I could feel her like just tense, and I would immediately, and I got to the point where I did it without even thinking about it, I would position myself between her and them, or something would happen and she would immediately go back. And in that 15, 20 minutes or an hour, she did not know where she was at. And she didn't know that I was the one holding her, And then, as an adult, the idea, well, just, if you smoke a little weed, it'll make you feel better. Well, she became addicted very quickly, and of course that, when she was stoned or, was drinking, that didn't help because that would send her back as well. Right. So
they're downers.
Yes. So there's a lot of things that go on, but someone that has a flashback or there is a trigger and they don't know what's coming.
Right.
They're walking down the street and they're fine, and then the next minute, literally, they're having images that are coming back that they don't want to see. So I think it's also understanding that there's just more to it than what a lot of people understand. The way we approach individuals who are broken by trauma, they can be healed. The trauma can be healed.
Now, I don't know if you want to answer this or not, but the rape of your daughter, was the individual taken care of? Was he arrested? Or if you don't mind, you don't have to answer.
It's fine. It's fine. My daughter is an introvert, and we went to Japan. We transferred there in 2005. My husband was finishing up a recruiting tour and, going back to sea duty. And so he was deployed when we got to Japan because I was finishing up my degree at USF and letting the kids finish up their school year. So she was 11 when we got to Japan. And I somehow thought, this is really stupid of me, but I thought that going to a school dance would be a really good idea for her, right? And we were on Atsugi, which was a naval base, and Camp Zama is an army base. So I put her on the bus, thinking that somehow she'd make friends. She didn't want to go, but I'm like, no, it'd be good for you, right? I was trying to do the whole mom thing, right? I wasn't really listening to her, and she left the dance, and that's when she was raped. Now I didn't know about it until 3 years later, because that is common for children not to say.
Keep it in.
But there was a 180 in my daughter. The cutting, I started to notice marks on her arms. The dress, the way she dressed, became very dark. The type of music that she listened to, and there was this marked shift in her. And I would ask her, honey, what happened? Something had to have happened.
Right, to turn you.
Because this is,
It's not you.
But she wouldn't tell me, oh, nothing. And so I chalked it up to going into, puberty, right? With, going into that, you're, for women, for periods.
Everybody's experimenting different things.
Exactly.
Right.
Her dad being gone. She's very close to her dad. He was gone, 9 to 10 months out, the year.
Yeah.
Being in a new environment, change was always very difficult for her. So I just, that's what I thought it was. Like a combination of things. And then
Which probably every parent out there would have thought the same thing.
Yes. I mean, rape was not even in my stratosphere.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But I sent her, I thought maybe if she reconnected with some, family and friends. So in 2008, for the summer, I flew her home to Tampa area, and she was at her best friend's house staying the night, and she told her mom, and her mom called me. And she left a message, and of course, there's a time difference between Japan and Florida, so I called her back, and as soon as she told me, everything made sense. But That is the long answer to your question of she never did tell us who. I don't know if she knew who. Over the years, based on things that she has said, I have an idea.
Right.
But, I'm not going to state who because there's no, you have to be able to prove something like that.
Right.
But
you have a thought that you think is right.
Yes.
I don't want to force you to hit on.
But so sadly, no.
Okay. Question 3. What is your mission?
The mission is to change the ending by providing opportunities for new beginnings.
Short, sweet, and to the point. I love that.
Sweet to the point.
Absolutely. All right. Question 4. What is your purpose?
The purpose is to engage communities, business leaders, schools, anyone to change the way that trauma is recognized, diagnosed, and most importantly, treated.
Absolutely. And last of these, what is your goal?
To fund holistic trauma healing for anyone who reaches out to the foundation.
I love that.
There's
Absolutely.
a lot of underserved communities.
Yes, there are.
And to support like organizations, because there are organizations who have a similar approach, but they tend to focus on one group within the population, like veterans or children.
Right.
They definitely need it. But there are also many, many others who the insurance either doesn't cover trauma therapy because it's not considered mainstream, or it's considered alternative, or they don't have access to it, or they don't have insurance, or they just don't know. There's no access to that. So it's bringing awareness that yes, we are here, we are a resource, and then working with those organizations that are similar to expand their reach.
Absolutely. So it gives everybody an opportunity that is hurting, to seek and get help.
Yes.
I love that. Now, what would the legacy of the group be if you could write it when all is said and done?
Oh, okay. Now I'm going to cry.
I'm sorry, I don't mean.
No, in a good way. So I want the legacy to be. So the foundation is new, and because the foundation is new, then I have to tell why it is started, which is Shelby's story. And that's important, and that will always be important to me. But the legacy will be the moment we stop telling Shelby's story and we start telling the stories of people who are healed. And that is the focus. That instead of leading with my daughter killed herself,
my daughter
because of my daughter, my son, my husband, my coworker, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my friend, my cousin, whomever was healed.
Absolutely.
And this is what that looks like. And that's the legacy.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about, suicide is a final manifestation of trauma.
Right.
But there are a lot of other negative things that happen along the way. And so for me, it's important to say to people, no matter where you are, you can heal.
Yeah.
And it can be different. And again, as I stated, you can't change the past, but you can change where you are with healing that allows you to move forward.
Absolutely.
And then your family is healed. And then your circle is healed. And like trauma splatters, it does. It affects every area of our society. Healing spreads.
Right. I love that.
So that is the legacy.
That's a beautiful legacy right there. I'm trying to think of how to say this, but it's hard to put into words. As horrible as what happened. There's going to be so much good that's going to come out of this.
Well, I would tell Shelby because she has a voice. This girl can sing, and I know I'm her mom, right? And every parent says that. Right. I don't know where she got it. It was just a gift from the Lord. And I would tell her, you have a story, and you have a voice.
Right.
And your story will touch so many people.
Yes.
And so she is no longer here physically,
Right.
but her story will still be able to connect, because for so many people who have gone through traumatic experiences, they feel like people don't understand.
Right.
And so it's important to connect with people.
Yeah.
And to say, I don't know what your experiences are. Even the same experience, like as they're saying, like you and I in a car accident, right?
Right.
I don't know your experience, and I don't know your life, but I do understand what it's like to hurt, and I understand what trauma feels like.
Right.
And so I would like to come along beside you. And so in that respect, that's why it's important to be open. And being open about such personal things is difficult for me, because I'm only open when I feel there's, like, individually, right? And it's not something that, again, that makes people uncomfortable. I mean, I've had some family members who just move on, just get over it.
Right.
Okay. But I think it's important for people to know that they're not alone. And that, yes, there are people who say things out of ignorance, they just don't get it, right?
Yep.
But we are not that foundation. And if someone reaches out to us, especially, because we're developing the network of trauma therapists now, the network of life coaches, and we're getting that, and we're getting the funding. And so as soon as we can start helping one person, then we will. And then that one person will become 2, and then that 2 will become 3, and the 3 will become 4, and there it goes, right?
Absolutely.
So that, because we want to be that resource for people.
Right.
And I don't care what community a person comes from.
Right.
I don't care what they look like or what. It's about saying, when the person reaches out, because that person does have to reach out, right? We will say, we are here, and thank you for allowing this opportunity, because it gets that word out.
Right.
But when that person reaches out, and at any point, because the funding will be there for a full year, right? It allows for healing. It allows for new habits to replace bad habits. But at any point, the person can say, I'm out. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And that's their choice. So it's not forcing anyone to do anything, but it's providing.
It's an opportunity.
Exactly.
Right.
And,
and that's awesome right there, because I know there's got to be thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, there's no telling, out there that wished they had something like this that they could reach out to in their time of need.
I do.
Right.
I wish that we had known, right? And also, I think when someone's going through something like that, like with me, with my daughter, it feels like you're in the middle of a torrential rain, downpouring, and everybody in Florida knows this. If maybe not in California, but those downpours where your windshield wipers are going as fast as they can, and you can't see but maybe a foot in front of you, or being in that fog, like that rolls in, and you're so focused on just trying to stay on the road and not hit anybody else, right? That's really kind of what it feels like. And so it's hard to know the questions to ask. It's hard to know what to look for. And so part of it is also being a resource to say to people, these are some questions you can ask.
Right.
This is what you can look for in a therapist. Do they listen? Do they take the time to get to know you? Do they tailor a healing path that's centered around you as an individual? Not this thing that's used for everybody, not a blanket,
right?
So it's also being able to provide that information to cut through the noise when people are on that journey.
Yeah, and like I said at the start of this, at the start of this question, this is something that was so bad. It's going to bring so much hope and help to so many others. So her legacy will be helping and saving others That's awesome right there.
Well, God has a tremendous way of taking and using people, right? I mean, he used Moses and he couldn't speak, and which was, but I think, my faith and knowing that she knew the Lord and she is at peace.
Absolutely.
But also allowing the Lord to work through me, because this will not happen because of Yvonne Harper. This will happen because of the Lord.
Yep.
And our world in general is in desperate need of just that love that Christ exhibited, that he showed, right? Where it's, I love you, period.
Yeah.
How can I help you? Period. Instead of the judging, well, you look a certain way or you act a certain way. Again, it's being, so that it's through him that this will be successful.
Absolutely. And I have no doubt it's going to be a success. Now, how can others that see this video or come across your website and hear this message, how can they help out if they want to?
Okay, well, the first thing, hit the donate button.
There you go, right?
donate.
We got to grow this, get that money made.
Absolutely. So there, obviously the donation, one-time giving, recurring giving, it can be set up to where,
Now, is that on the website?
It is.
What's the website?
Shelbyswalk.org.
Shelbyswalk.org, and we're going to put that up there for you guys.
And there's no apostrophe between the Shelby apostrophe S. It's just Shelbys.
Straight Shelbys.
Walk.
SHELBYS walk.org.
And for some people, it might be $5.
Right.
And for me, $5 is phenomenal.
Yeah,
right? There is no amount that I think of that is too small, because it will just grow. And recurring is awesome. If it's $5 a month, $10 a month, if it's a one-time, that's good as well.
Yeah.
If someone wants to sponsor, to say, hey, look, I will donate $10,000 for a person.
Right.
And to sponsor a person. If they want to do it that way, that is great as well. But so there's obviously the financial, and there's the networks. If anyone out there is a life coach, if anyone out there is a trauma therapist, it doesn't have to be in St. Rosa County.
Right.
I mean, if somehow this reaches Alaska, there's a lot of
anybody that can help.
There's a lot of people in Alaska who could use some. You could use some healing, right?
I can imagine.
So, anyone that wants to be a part of that, to say yes, I will be a resource, and to connect with me on that way, you can send an email to Yvonne at shelbyswalk.org. There's a phone number. I believe it's 1-888-251-0303, which is also on the website. There is a contact information that you can send any questions to. But yes, so the financial contributions, the networking, if someone has that skill set and they want to be a part of it, if they know of somebody, definitely share the information. Or if you're an organization, I will come and talk to your organization to bring awareness to what we offer. With the schools, I will speak to any group. I don't care where you are. I won't drive to Alaska. I'll probably fly there. But
you'll find a way to get there.
I will find a way to get there. So bringing awareness, right? So anyone who says, well, I know this organization, even if it's 10 people, right? To help spread the word, if you will, that we are a resource, and praying, absolutely praying, and that those are ways that they can come along beside us and walk with us.
Absolutely
on this journey.
And
share.
Yes, absolutely. We got to get this message out there, folks. Please share this as far and wide as possible. Put it in the groups, put it in wherever you possibly can, because I guarantee you, each one of us have had someone that has went through something like this, and we've all been affected by this one way, shape, form, or fashion, and we got to help everybody that we possibly can. I don't care if it's here or if it's in Alaska, as you said. It doesn't matter. That's one life that we can help out. So please share, please spread the message. Absolutely.
Thank you. And also any other organizations, if you know of other organizations that are similar that we can partner with.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
well.
Right, absolutely. That would help make things easier as well.
Because I only know what I know, so it.
Right, right. You're just trying to do what's right and help folks out. I understand that completely. Now, how can we best help others that are in or have gone through trauma?
Oh, that's how much time do we have? I think the best way to help is, obviously to find a trauma therapist, to ask, when you're looking for a therapist, ask them what modalities they use.
Okay.
Ask them what their technique or approach is to the person, to fully understand, because cognitive behavior therapy is one form, but there are other modalities. Are they trained in trauma as far as helping? But as far as personal relationships, empathy and grace and love. Empathy is the ability to come along beside someone and say, I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what this feels like, but I'm going to walk beside you.
Right.
Grace is giving that which is not deserved. And, when someone is experiencing a flashback or they're struggling, they will act in ways that are not very kind.
Right.
But to be able to have grace and to say, I know this is the trauma that's talking, and I love you, and I'm not going to stop loving you, right? Doesn't matter what you call me.
Right.
And again, I'm not advocating for excusing illegal behavior or no consequences.
No.
So,
right. No, I understand.
but it's saying to that person, I love you.
Right.
And if you don't know what to say, that's okay. Just simply just simply state that I don't know what to say. What can I do?
But I'm here for you. Right.
That's right. What can I do to help?
Absolutely.
Is there anything I can do to help? And I think that just that support for someone who's gone through that. And whatever you do, don't tell them to get over it. Don't say,
oh my goodness.
Well, you just need to move on. It's not that big of a deal. You're not the only one. And because that just further isolates the person.
Pushes them away even further. Okay, now I got one more for you. Then I promise I'll let you get out of here. Is there anything else that you would like to hit on, like for example the trauma splatters statement that you mentioned?
I do. I wanted to, I like numbers. Those who know me know I like to do some research, and I have to get my glasses on because I'm over the age of 40 and I can't read anymore.
Oh, I'm 37. I'm right behind you.
Enough.
So, good. I got you. So you're saying I need to go ahead and get fitted for my glasses?
Probably. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes. After the age of 40, yes, that's when.
Oh no! I got 3 more years.
Enjoy though.
I absolutely will.
But just trauma's effect on society. The collective economic cost is $458 billion. For depression, the economic cost is $210.5 billion annually. Medicaid, it's 20% more for the taxpayer compared, to have someone who's experienced trauma than to provide care to someone who's not experienced trauma. Children, higher dropout rate from school, higher high school dropout rate, higher impaired learning, more behavioral infractions, reduced life expectancy by 20 years, and the more behavioral infractions tend to lead to drugs.
Yeah.
So imagine you're 10 and you've just witnessed, a traumatic event the night before, whether it's domestic violence or something else, and you go to school the next day and you act out. So often these children are diagnosed as ADD, ADHD, and that's not to say, again, that there aren't real cases, but that's how they're treated, or the
Right.
child's viewed as a behavior child when the child has witnessed.
There's nothing like that at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So before they're 10, they've witnessed 5 shootings or 3 stabbings, and so they've had these experiences in their lives, and they don't know how to process them, right? Businesses, $15,000 per employee for per employee for employees with mental health issues. That's what it costs the businesses. And to replace an employee, it costs almost $5,800. Health-wise, 2.4 times more likely to have a stroke, twice as likely to get cancer, 7 times more likely to be an alcoholic, a higher rate of illicit drug addiction, and 12 times more likely to attempt suicide.
Wow.
Homelessness. In 2020, more than 580,000 Americans were homeless, to include children, families, and veterans. And approximately 35,000 men were homeless due to PTSD, at a cost of $869.1 million annually. And 83% of our inner city youth, 18 and younger, report experiencing trauma. 1 out of every 10 children under the age of 6 witness a shooting or stabbing. And as far as the drugs, the drug industries are making a mint.
Yeah. Yes.
In 2018, the top 4 drugs for clinical depression, which is the most classified, or not classified, but common label, if you will, clinical depression, was Zoloft, Xanax, Trazodone, and Lexapro. And what I found incredibly distressing is there were more than 611 million prescriptions written for clinical depression or psychiatric medication in 2018 for a population of less than 321 million.
Yeah.
So the drugs are not working. Again, there is a time and place for drugs, but it just focuses on the symptoms. And I want people to think of it like this. You go to the doctor because you've broken your arm or you've broken your leg.
Right.
And the doctor says to you, let's talk about how this feels. How does it feel to break your leg? Well, it hurts. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just talk through, how did you break your leg? Well, this is how I broke my leg. Okay. Because we just need to change the way you feel about this broken leg. And we're going to give you some medication. We're going to give you some drugs to deal with the pain.
Yeah.
And then you just go home and don't worry about it. And so your leg is going to heal, I imagine, but it's going to heal in a way that's not, that will cause pain the rest of your life. It's not going to heal properly, right? We would never accept that as an answer. We would say, no, you're going to set my leg, and yes, it's going to be painful now, but you're going to properly set my leg so that it heals, so that I don't have to take pain medication for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
Right? So we need to think of it like that.
An addict.
Yes. Or when someone has cancer, they develop an entire treatment plan around the whole person.
Right.
Right. And with the goal of eradicating and removing the cancer, right? And so the same with the trauma, it really needs to be viewed in the same way, that it affects the whole person. And we really the goal should be to heal it, not to mask it with drugs
or anything else. You want to fix the problem.
Yes. Go to the root.
Yes.
Go to the root of it.
Absolutely.
And when you heal a person, you heal a person's family.
Yes.
The family then, so again, it starts to...
Healing splatters as well.
No, trauma splatters, healing spreads.
Hell, there you go. Healing spreads. Sorry.
Yes.
But you're absolutely correct. Because we've seen it so many times play out where one family member becomes, I'm just going to use this as an example, addicted to opiates, for example. Yes. It affects the whole family.
Absolutely.
Everybody. But when that person recovers, beats that addiction, that whole family heals also. Yes. It's the same thing right here.
And it takes a team.
Yes, you better believe it.
It takes all of us coming together to really...
And this isn't hard, because we have all, I don't care who you are, we have all been affected by this in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Our jails are full. I mean, I'm sure with the behavioral units, at any given time, I'm sure it's very difficult for someone to find a bed.
Yeah.
The suicide rates for our young people, for our children, is increasing, and that's year after year. So what we're doing is not working. And if what we're doing is not working, then I think it's time we do something differently, because people's
What's
lives
the definition of insanity?
matter. Right, exactly. People's lives matter. Every person has value.
Yes.
And they should be treated. And the sooner you can have someone heal, the sooner that new beginning takes effect.
Right.
And the less likely that the negative things will happen.
You know, and also I want to bring this up as well. We see it so more. When I was in, elementary, middle school, we never heard of a student committing suicide because of bullying. I know this is a little bit off subject, but I want to bring this up as well. But nowadays, every time you turn on the TV, it seems somebody's child has committed suicide because of bullying in elementary and middle school or social media bullying.
Well, I think the bullying has gotten worse. I mean, I remember being bullied. I mean, I think there's always been an element of that. But I think as a society, we don't want to address it.
Right.
And again, I mean, I'm
I'm
not an expert, right? But most people, especially children, tend to behave in the way that they see.
Right, learning
They
patterns.
model what they see.
Right.
So, and this is not true of all bullies, but a lot of bullies come from homes that are broken, abusive. They're broken.
Yep.
And so
they
then they don't see the value of life. So to bully somebody else, and what magnifies it, I think, is the social media.
Yep.
You have instances, many, where the bullying is now worldwide.
Yep.
And so the stress at a time that's already difficult. I remember my teenage years.
Oh, yeah.
Very awkward.
Everybody does.
Very difficult. And people would say to me, well-meaning adults, "Oh, high school, these are the best years of your life." And I was thinking, "Oh Lord, these cannot be the best years of my life. It has to get better than this."
Right.
And it does, right? I mean, they don't last forever, but in that moment, you feel it's hard for a young person, and when I say young, I mean like a teenager or younger, to see tomorrow.
Yep.
To see next week.
All they
To
see is
see
the
that
here
it's
and
going
now.
to end, right? And then something that is embarrassing and humiliating is now broadcast.
Yeah.
So that is definitely that breaks my heart when I hear those stories. It really does, because I don't know what the fix to that. I don't know what the fix
to me,
to that is.
I'm going to say this and then we'll get off of here. But to me, that right there, it all starts back at the home.
It does.
Whether you come from, both parents or single parent, whatever, the parent needs to be involved in the child's life, needs to know what the child is doing. And when the child does wrong, don't be their friend, be the parent.
Yes.
Do what's right. But anyway, that's
But if the
different
parent
story.
has experienced, if they don't know how to parent because they're just doing what they've experienced, which is not good, then they need healing so that they then can be.
They need a way to reach out to get help for themselves.
Yes.
Absolutely,
So that they can
I
then
agree.
change, right the ship, if you will.
Yep, because if not, it's going to continue and continue. Well, anyway, it has been an absolute pleasure and an absolute honor to sit here with you. We're going to get all of this young lady's information out there. So if you want to help out, if you want to reach out to her in any way, shape, form, or fashion, you're going to be able to. And most importantly, please share this. And please, if you're able, donate. Help them grow this. Because this is going to help possibly somebody in your family one day. You never know.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Thank you so much. I so enjoyed talking.
It was a
really
pleasure.
did. Thank
I had a
you.
blast. All right, guys. Toodles.